I think the word that people are using for these physical objects that are linked up to Twitter is the tweetject.
Tweetject is it's actually the term I coined, so if you don't like it, you can blame me. But it contrasts with blogjects, which is a term somebody else came up with, which is objects that blog. So things that create their own audit trail of information, which people can cross-link to and comment on and so on. So the obvious analogy to that, to microblogging, is tweetjects. And the biggest difference, as well as the sort of linear chain of information, is that Twitter messages, as some of you know, if you're twittering, are delivered directly to your phone by SMS, so there's the immediacy of an alert. So, for example, when my phone rings at home, and some of those tweets you saw were phone ringing, not only does it put an entry into the Andy's house timeline for phone is ringing, it also direct messages me and says Jim's phoning or Fred's phoning or so on. So when I pick the phone up, within a couple of seconds, my phone buzzes and I can tell who it is that's phoning me. Particularly when I'm out, that really spooks people, because I'll be at home and my phone will, away from home, my phone will buzz, Sue's calling, and phone Sue back and say, oh, you called? She says, yes, but you're out. I am. How do you know then? So it's pretty cool.
So we've got objects linked to Twitter with little sensors. We've got the growing use of RFID tags. These are the very cheap little tags with a radio transmitter inside them that the TED fellows are carrying. So when they go into the IBM lounge, it recognizes them and videos are projected. Where do you see this era of pervasive computing going? People talk about the Internet of Things, where physical things from your pullover to your car keys are connected to the internet and you can log things in real time. Is that a million miles away?
No, I think there's a matter of degree. I mean, you don't want to wire up useless things, but there's a big advantage in wiring up things which you might not be able to see the immediate use of, but when it's combined with something else, it suddenly makes a bigger advantage. I mean, the twittering ferries are cool in themselves, but if you also link that up to the buses and the trains either side of it, you've now got the option of an integrated transport system where, saying, I want to go to London, I just set off in the morning, my little agent thing on the web is twittering me to say, okay, you've just missed this connection, the next one's here. If you go to Birmingham and change platforms there, you'll get there 10 minutes quicker. Oh, we've already rescheduled your meetings at the other end, is that okay? So it's the fact that all these things individually may or may not be particularly useful, but when they're all linked together, you get this sea of data, and by mining that, you get information, then knowledge about that, about the world you're in, and that's when it becomes really exciting.
Exciting, but is there a slightly scary side to this in 20 or 30 years when everything we're wearing has a little broadcasting tag or chip in it?
Yeah, well, a lot of people ask me about this about my house. I mean, the Andy house account is closed, so you have to ask to join it, but I'm not particularly selective about who are allowed to join it at the moment. But I am very conscious of the security and privacy issues, particularly for my family when I'm not there. But first of all, it's really good to get that conversation out in this sort of environment where people can talk about security and the philosophy about it, and if this is a good idea or that's a good idea, because one of the facts about a lot of the stuff I do is just because you can do it doesn't mean you should, and I've stumbled across quite a lot of those. But this is a good place to explore that before we roll this out to every home in the country and suddenly realize, oops, that was a bad idea, we hadn't realized that. So for example, if my house twitters the bathroom window's open, well, that may or may not be true. It might be reverse logic, so the bathroom window is actually closed, or it might be a completely different window or door in the house that's sending me a coded message saying, actually, your front door's wide open, but I didn't particularly want to publicize that fact. So because I completely control what goes in, goes out from which sensors, I'm comfortable with the level of security and privacy about that. But ultimately, the consumers will decide. So RFID is a good example, whether we'll need these sort of burn at the point of payment tags where they get zonked as you check out, and therefore you're not taking that RFID information out into the street with you. I mean, a bit like identity cards, we, the public, will decide what we ultimately want, whether it's by not buying things or by voting or whatever. So I don't think we need to worry. I think but there will be lots more sensors, and it's all going to be built up in a managed, sort of secure sort of way.
So tell us what a master inventor actually does with his day. You're not wearing a white lab coat.
No, or sandals. No. Oh, actually, well, I've got my Toms on. Hey, Toms.
What do you invent? How do you work?
Barrett is also a master inventor. There are 23 of us at the Hursley lab out of a population of about 1,400 software engineers out of a lab of 3,000. basically, master inventor role is two things. One is to have lots of patents, inventing cool things, and you mentioned the 42 patents. The main part of a master inventor's role, though, is helping other people find the innovation in their work. So my door's always open. People wander into my office with a half-baked idea and say, well, I've got this kind of half an idea, and we'll scribble it on the whiteboard and scratch our heads a bit, and we'll tease out that sort of intellectual property nugget, the new invention. Because what tends to happen is that people don't realize they've invented something new. So we give our software engineers a task to do, and they'll scratch their heads, and they'll try it a couple of times, and they'll throw away a prototype and pace up and down a bit, and finally, got the answer, brilliant. Well, that kind of feeling and situation means probably what you just did, no one in the world ever did before. That's a really special feeling. You've got to kind of bottle that and keep it, because when it happens next time, you want to recognize it. So we help people find that innovative spark.
Okay, well, I'm going to just ask one more question before I throw it over to the crowd. What's going to be the big changes in information technology in the next generation that you're thinking about that we should be aware of?
I think the next big things on the horizon are combination of virtual worlds and augmented reality. In which order they'll come, I'm not quite sure yet, but 3D immersive worlds. If you read Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson 15 years ago, basically all that's come true now. It's basically a history book. So that's almost all of it came true, and things like Second Life and OpenSim and so on are good examples of that. And there'll be live data flowing in and out of those virtual worlds. So for example, there's a virtual model of my house in the virtual world, and if you turn the lights on in Second Life, my real lights come on in First Life, which is great the first 200 times, but it gets a bit wearing after that. With augmented reality, now there's another book called Halting State by Charles Stross. Now effectively, halting state is to 15 years' time, as Snow Crash was to now 15 years ago. So basically it's telling us what's going to happen in 15 years' time, in my humble opinion. And this is where everyone's wearing these glasses that augment reality, so you've got a video overlay onto what you're actually seeing. So for example, as you get on a bus, all the people who are antisocial have little red lights flashing over them to keep away from them. And as you walk up the street towards your house, a dotted line goes like that and shows you which way to go. All of that's a sort of number of data overlays that you can go. And you can imagine that crossover between the virtual world and the augmented reality really becoming quite real as we have better video technology and also a ubiquitous high-speed wireless network. So I think it's all possible.
So I'd like everybody to go home and connect your bathroom up to Twitter, to blog, to podcast, and Wired Magazine will put the best one on the cover. This is the kind of guy you really want knocking around the house when there's a blocked sink or something, isn't it? I'd just like to say thank you, Andy Stanford-Clark. That was inspiring and enlightening. Thank you, Ted. Thank you, IBM, for making this happen. We at Wired are pleased that, with the help of IBM, we'll be running for the next 6 months or so pieces about the TED Fellows, so you can read about some of yourselves over the next few months in Wired. Enjoy the rest of TED. Thanks, everybody.